All right, well, let's get the ball rolling here today. It's great to have everybody for, I believe this is our 16th session. And just to let you know, as things are loosening up in the world and hopefully things are getting back a little bit closer to normal, it was our intent to slow these things down a little bit. We weren't going to do them every week. So starting, well, we'll have this week, and then we'll start doing every other week for a while. We believe people are still interested in these, so we're going to keep doing them. But we're going to slow them down a little bit because it never was our intent to do 52 of these things in a year. We want to give you guys a little bit of a breather. We're lining up some really cool stuff. A while ago, somebody brought up a Braintree PD and their RFID system. I'm in discussions with them. I'm trying to get it to where we're going to do a webinar and possibly even the vendor for RFID, and we're going to dig into this. We're going to look at RFID from all different perspectives, and so I think that's something people are genuinely interested in. So I'm trying to work it out to get Braintree and the vendor on a webinar. So that's coming up. And but anyway, so just want to let everybody know these will starting next. We won't have one next week, and then it'll be in 2 weeks. So you'll still get an email reminder when these things are coming up. And of course, we will still post all of this on the Evidence Management Facebook group. So if you're not a member of that group, we're up to over 400 members right now. So facebook.com/groups/evidence management, and you can sign up there. Tomorrow actually is the last of 8 training courses, the evidencemanagement.com training courses that we've been offering now for 8 weeks, but we're in talks about renewing those and doing them again. So even though those are recorded, people like to show up live to those, so those probably are going to still continue. Again, we're at that point where we're transitioning out of what we thought was going to be all this COVID stuff, but we intend on keeping this stuff going. So keep an eye on that. Again, we post everything in that evidence management group on Facebook, so take a look at it there. All right, so today's topic, I did not announce this. I didn't put anything on Facebook because today I'm not going to do an evidence room tour. I'm not going to go over a specific evidence management topic. I'm going to talk about something that's maybe a little more near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to sort of pull the curtain back a little bit on myself and Tracker Products. And I want to share with you a little bit about how we operate. And the reason I'm showing this to you guys is not because this is just about Tracker Products, all right? The concept of leadership and leadership development is something that I've learned the hard way. I'll talk about that in a minute. I learned it the hard way about 5 years ago. And I just believe passionately that everybody, I don't care what position you're in, you have influence, you have a potential for being in levels of leadership. And at Tracker, certainly, I don't want anybody thinking, oh, well, I'm just this. And we want everybody that works for Tracker Products. There are 24 of us around the globe that call Tracker Products home, essentially. And it is my goal that all 24 of those people believe that they are capable of things they're greater of. And so we spend a lot of time on leadership development. And so today I'm going to pick one topic that we spend a lot of time going on at Tracker Products. I believe this topic is applicable to you. Now, if you were to look at this and you see creating positive change and you were to tune out at this point, I don't think that would be good. This is something that is very important to you because you are in a world where change is going on all the time. And we want to talk about creating positive change, not just change, because there is change. There's bad change, there's disruptive change. We're talking about creating positive change. And so I'm going to focus on that topic today. But I want to start out and tell you a little bit about Tracker, a Tracker story. All right. Now, something about me. I'll bet you guys didn't even know this. I have 9 master's degrees. Now, not actual master's degrees from a university, but I can proudly display these on the wall. And they read something like finance, how not to do it, dealing with people, how not to do it. And I've obtained master's degrees on all of these things. And in 45 years, I've done a lot of good things, but I've also done a lot of things the wrong way. And in that time, I've obtained 9 different master's degrees to show for that. I guess the good part about that is a lot of people don't obtain their 9th master's degree until they're in their 80s. I got it out of the way in my 40s, and so hopefully the last 50 years will be a lot different. I'm assuming I have 50 more years. I have no idea. I hope the last 50 years, if I'm allowed that, will be very different than what the first 40 years were like. And so what happens is, and I mentioned a moment ago, we have 24 employees of Tracker Products, all right? One of my master's degrees is how to frustrate people that work within your company. And I did that very efficiently for almost 20 years. You guys may not know, I've been in business for myself for 25 years. I joke with people that I am completely unemployable in the real world. Nobody would want me. I've been on my own for way too long. I probably wouldn't fit into a structure where, well, I'll leave it at that. It wouldn't probably work well. I've been on my own for so long. I just know how to do it this way. And so what I learned about 5 years ago when I was frustrating people, for me, there was a constant state of rotating people within our company. That was one of those things that stood out to me, was that people were coming and going at a much more rapid pace than I thought was normal. And so I wound up asking myself the question, why do people come and go so quickly around here? And I spent some time trying to figure that out. And in the end, something became very noticeable to me. I thought a lot of other people were the problem, and ultimately it was me. I had a moment where I'm telling you, I can almost remember the day where I was like, oh man, you're the problem. The reason people are coming and going is because of you. And so really long story short, today we're gonna spend a little bit of time in this book right here. I can't see myself on the screen, but I'm hoping this is displaying right now. I ran across this book almost 5 years ago. It's a John Maxwell book called Developing the Leader Within You. This book changed my life. I'm telling you, the things that I read in here, I've applied in my life. I've applied to the work, the people that I work with, and it has been unbelievably impactful. So if you're in leadership or you're just dealing with people, I'm actually going to make that even more basic. If you work with people in your world, and that is everybody that's on the phone here, if you are working and dealing with people, this is a book you should want to dig into. Now, what we do at Tracker Products, just to give you a little bit of idea how this works, we actually are just hiring our 24th employee right now. And so when we bring an employee on, it is the most not normal or unconventional process of bringing somebody on. So what happens is we do an interview where we just talk to them. Do we even like interacting with them? And that may take 30 minutes of just pure talk. And then after that, we move into a phase where, okay, we're going to get into some more maybe specific things about the job, and we want to talk to you about that. If we like that, here's what gets really crazy. We tell them, in order to become part of this team, you have to read this book, this entire John Maxwell book. And it's not a massive read, but it's 200 pages. So let's assume you got 4 to 5 hours into that. Then after that, I have a 4-hour phone call with them in 2 different sessions, 2 2-hour sessions, where we go through the entirety of this book. Keep in mind, this is before we even bring them on or before they're even offered a job. And the reason we do that is because this book has been so impactful on my life. I use it to say, hey, by the time I go through 4 hours, you're going to know a significant about me, a significant amount of stuff about me. I'm going to know a significant amount of stuff about you. And at that point, we can both make decisions if we think this is going to be a good fit. So before we even offer somebody a job, we've got every bit of 10 hours invested into it. And I have gone through this book, and there have been a couple of people that at the end of it were like, I'm not interested in that. Like the things you're presenting, that like I'm not in it for that. And so I just lost 10 hours. But I'm telling you, losing 10 hours is better than employing the wrong person and putting hundreds of hours into them and finding out it's not the right person. And so, as it would be, and I know it's because of this, in the last 5 years, not one person that has worked for Tracker has left. Now, I think eventually somebody's going to move on, but the people that we have now, they know why they're involved with us. They know what makes us tick and why we do what we do. And I some of the people that I work with are just the best people I've ever worked with. They are invested. They are doing incredible things within our company, and we now don't have that turnover. So here's how I want to apply this to you. Today, I'm going to take one of the 10 topics that are in this book, and I want to get into this because this is something you are going to deal with, which is change. dealing with change in your world. And so what I want to do is we're going to break this up into 3 different things. We're going to talk about why change is a problem, number 1. What are the things that cause problems with change? And then we're going to get into the second half where we're going to get into how do you enact positive change? What are some of the things you need to make sure you're doing? Because as I get into this, let's go through some of my favorite quotes that are in this. Now, I do want you to know, I want to give John Maxwell all the credit on this, because everything I have displayed on these screens are information out of this book. Again, I'm simply telling you this book has changed my life and the way I run a business and work with other people. And so I'm simply sharing with you things that are in here. So some of my favorite quotes in this one chapter: when you're through changing, you're through. Period. Let that sink in for just a minute. So if you're the type of person that doesn't want change or wants nothing to do with that, it's a matter of time before fill in the blank for what happens next, okay? I believe change is a part of our world, and you better embrace it, or you can go kicking and screaming, but it's happening. The next one, growth equals change. If you want to grow and be a better person, I don't care if you want to grow and be a better father, a mother, a husband, a wife, whatever it is, you are going to have to change along the way. And then the last one is, if you're in leadership, or again, I would apply this if you're even around people. If you want to continue leading or be around people, you must continue changing. All right. So let's get into, what does leadership look like when it's in trouble, when things are bad? And I guarantee you, as we read through some of these, you guys could probably spend a moment and bring up people in your mind that would fit into this. This would be some of the characteristics of really poor leadership. Now, here's what I want to say as I'm getting ready to go through these things. If this is you, if you recognize yourself in some of these things, don't let that overwhelm you. Don't stop. I've been there. I'm telling you, I was at the pits of running a company, and I was doing probably every one of these things wrong. And so over time, as I read these things and learned and changed, I became very different than what this is. But you need to recognize these. A leader in trouble has poor understanding of people, lacks imagination, has personal problems, passes the buck, feels secure and satisfied, is not organized, flies into rages, will not take risk, is insecure and defensive, stays inflexible, has no team spirit, and then the very bottom one, fights change. These are, I don't think I will get a lot of argument on this, that I believe every one of these things would be characteristics of a bad leader or a bad person to be around. Now, again, you may in your mind be thinking, I know everybody, oh my goodness, this is that person, and I've got this person in mind. These are the type of things you should be introspective on these things. You should be looking to say, are any of these me? Because if they are, take that to heart, learn, make changes. But if these are you, maybe that's why people don't want to be around you. And I say that lovingly, understand, I'm telling you, I was that person. Like, I'm not sitting here just casting this on somebody else. I was that person. People didn't want to be around me long term because some of these were characteristics of mine. Okay, to be a leader, you must preserve all through your life the attitude of being receptive to new ideas. We're going to talk about new ideas in just a moment. And you may be the kind of person that's like, I love new ideas. Well, wait till we get into the first thing that's a resistant characteristic of change, and then we'll ask that same question. Why do people resist change? And then I like this quote: there is nothing more difficult to undertake, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than introducing change. And I'll bet you some of you got experience with that. Just walk into a room, throw out a new idea, and watch what happens. That is, and we're going to go through some of that. What does the life cycle of change look like? And so I'll bet everybody has some experience with that. And that gets people gun shy with throwing out new ideas when, again, it's easier to be, there's a radio personality in Cincinnati. He uses the phrase nathering nabob of negativism. Finding the nathering nabobs of negativism in this world are very, very simple. Throw out a new idea and they just pop up. They're everywhere. Okay, So let's go through, why do people resist change? And the reason I'm really elaborating on this, because if you are somebody that is trying to institute change, and I'm talking something that you may think, some may think is simple, like I would like to get an evidence management system. That is change. That's going through this process. And so what I want you to know is there are some things that cause people to be resistant to change. And when you know these, you're better able to deal with them. Number one, the change isn't self-initiated. This is a trait that I have recognized in my own life. A lot of people, they love change, but they want to be the agent. And so that's something you have to deal with. And you may have to be working with somebody where you have to find a very tactful way to present the idea to them. And this does suck, I'll admit it. All right, what I'm about to say shouldn't be that way, but maybe the chief or the boss or whatever, maybe he's the one that comes up with the new ideas. You're gonna have to find a tactful way to come up with an idea that somehow he thinks it was his idea. I know it's dumb. Yes, that shouldn't be, but sometimes that is the way that it is. Okay. Number two, routine is disrupted. People like, in fact, many times people are willing to sit in their own slop just because it's comfortable. They would rather do that than make a change. And so there's no doubt that change is going to disrupt things, your normal routines, and people want to be comfortable. And so that's something you are going to have to deal with. Change creates fear of the unknown. Oh my goodness. Yes, that idea of what could possibly happen. There is nothing more stifling to change than just going through the litany of possibilities of things that could go wrong with this. And so within our company, you know, I constantly tell people we are not going to fear the things that can go wrong. Yes, we want to be smart. We do want to dig in and do our due diligence, but what we are not going to do is be locked up by fear, because, you know, fear is that is everywhere. Drive a car. I could die in a car crash. I could die walking a car. And there are just some people that are so locked up by fear, they cannot do anything. All right, the next thing, the purpose of the change is unclear. You got to be able to convey to people what it is you're trying to accomplish, and more importantly, why are you doing it? All right. If you just walk in the door, slam the doors open, and be like, all right, we're going to do this new thing, you're going to be like, that's not going to work. You got to make sure you're answering the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And we're going to dig into a little bit. There's some other ones in here. I don't want to dig too far into that, but that is a really important one right there. By the way, I wanted to go back. I had a quote I forgot to read. I really like this quote. It's in the book on the change creates fear of the unknown. Change means traveling in uncharted waters, and this causes our insecurities to rise. Therefore, many people are more comfortable with old problems than new solutions. And that's frustrating when you're in a situation where somebody would literally, they may not say it, but they would personify that I'll deal with the problem, like that's better than the unknown of where this thing may go or the new idea. All right. So another part of the fear is the fear of failure. People generally don't want to be a failure. That's a hard thing to deal with. And one thing that I would say is I think generally, if you look at business owners, they probably have a higher tolerance level for fear, or failure. They just know that that's an inevitable part of what they're going to deal with. Things are going to go wrong. They're going to have to adjust and make new ways of getting around them. Failure is not a mechanism for locking up, but there's a lot of people that don't have that mentality. And if there is any possibility of failure, and I mean any possibility, they're going to find it and they're going to make sure it's known. And ultimately, they wind up doing nothing because there is potential failure in everything. Okay. The next one, number 5, change won't happen when people engage in negative thinking. And so I have a really good quote here. I want to read this. Regardless of his state in the president, the negative thinker finds disappointment in the future. The epitaph on the negative person's headstone should read, "I expected this." I mean, do you know people that are like that? Like literally that idea of on their gravestone, it's going to read, I expected this. Like they just live life and everything is negative. Everything is wrong. There's always problems in everything. And ultimately, you don't want to be around that person. And unfortunately, in a lot of your situations, people are brought in, they're brought into that, and you've got to deal with the negative thinkers. And that's really, really hard to deal with. And it's stifling to change. Next one is the followers lack respect of the leader. So if you think about maybe if you're in a position with some subordinates and you're trying to institute change, maybe there's a lack of respect there because of the way you've been operating for so many years. Maybe you haven't, and in a little bit, we're going to talk about getting people's input on change. Are you a dictator? You know, or do you just tell people this is how we're going to do it because I said we're going to do it that way? That doesn't incentivize people to be a part of the process. And so that when you do throw out change, like there's no understanding there of the person, and that is in and of itself going to lead to something bad. Okay. This one is hard. This is going to hit everybody because this does affect everybody. The leader is susceptible to feelings of personal criticism. Nobody, and I mean nobody on this line here. Now you may say, and I'm capable of doing this a little bit myself, where I'm just impervious to what people think. But down deep, we all have that inner part of us where you don't want to face criticism. You don't want to fail, and you certainly don't want to face criticism. And so if you think about trying to implement change, there is a potential it's going to go wrong, and it's going to fail, and something's going to go sideways. And so you got to reckon with the fact there may be some personal criticism coming your way, and you'll have to be able to deal with that. And that concept is why some people just say, I'd rather not stick my foot out there and try to do anything. Okay. Number 8, we got 2 more of these, is change may mean personal loss. So think about that thing, and I don't believe there's anybody on the phone here that would meet this, but one of the things that stands out to me is like an IT department within a city. Amazon and Azure have these unbelievable infrastructures for technical stuff that makes it far cheaper and far easier to operate this stuff in the cloud. I guarantee you there are IT people out there that do not want to gravitate toward that, even if it's better, even if it's more cost effective, because it diminishes their role or may take them out of the play altogether. And so that's something when you're implementing change, and let's say you're sitting in a room with 10 people and you got to sell them on this idea, you better know who in that room may be affected in a negative way by what you're doing. And you may want to talk to them before you get into the larger group, because you know they're going to be a problem when you do get into that group, because this change is going to negatively affect them. Even if it's positive for the organization, it's going to negatively affect them. And then the last one, this is what gets people in our company in trouble if I ever even hear about this, and I've never, is we've always done it that way. I'm telling you, the dumbest answer to any question, and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes if you've ever said this, I'm just telling you, the dumbest answer to any question is we do it that way because we've always done it that way. I don't even know how to more elaborate on that than to be that specific. Just because it's always been done that way doesn't mean it's the best way. It certainly is going to prevent change. All right, so the last couple of things I want to go through. How do you create a climate for change? So now you know all the negatives, and these are things you are absolutely going to have to deal with when you're dealing with other people. How do we get into creating a climate for change? Human behavior studies show that people do not basically resist change, they resist being changed. And that is so true. You sit in a group of people and ask just for hands, how many people are open to change? Hands up. How many of you are willing to change yourself? Oh, hands down. You know, yeah, I'm interested in changing somebody else. And oh man, I had a really good, hold on one second. Dang it, I didn't mark that one. I had a really good one in here. Dang it, sorry, can't find my quote that I had in here. There was a really good one I had in regard to that, but it's about the idea that people are great with it changing somebody else, but not so much themselves. Okay, so here's how you as a leader, and I'm telling you, everybody is in positions of leadership and influence to some degree. You as a leader, number one, must develop trust with the people you deal with, and I mean everybody. You got to communicate with people. You got to communicate with the officers. Some of the things I've heard that I love to hear from people is that you're out talking to the officers. Get to know these people. I think I heard somebody say something about giving out gift cards, like, they were giving out gift cards to people that, I don't know, maybe did a good job or whatever. That's how you build up trust in people. And it really sets a foundation to create change when you have a good relationship with all the people in your world. If you have a chief or a sheriff or whoever the boss is, how do you get along with them? Are they just the person that sits upstairs and I never communicate with them? Do you only go into their office when there's a problem? Do you ever only talk to them when there's a problem? Do you ever just walk in and say, hey, I just want to let you know this is going really well? That's all I'm here to tell you today is this thing is going really, really well. And I just wanted to share that with you and maybe even go as far as thank you for your support on that. That's it. No expectations, nothing outside of that. When you do those things, you begin to build trust with people. Number two, the leader must make personal changes before asking others to change. And I think that is where my, yes, here. So actually, this is the next one coming up. Sorry, I've lost track of that, and I really want to find that quote. So the leader must make personal change. You got to look at yourself first. Remember that list I read a while ago where I'm like, these are characteristics of a leader that is failing? You got to be able to look at those things. And before you tell somebody else, I need you to make that change, you got to look at yourself and be willing to make those changes yourself. Because in the end, your people are going to react far more significantly to the changes you're making than the ones you're dictating somebody else makes. Show them how to do it. Be an example in that. The next one, good leaders understand the history of the organization. So that does sort of go counterproductive to my comments about tradition. I don't have any problems with understanding that there is tradition, there is history of this organization, and we need to be understanding of that. I'm just simply saying that cannot be the answer for stifling change. We've got to change, we've got to move, we've got to progress. The next one, check the change in your own pocket. And I do want to read this quote about this. Every leader is given a certain amount of change, emotional support in the form of bargaining chips at the beginning of a relationship. If the relationship weakens, the leadership gives up change until it is possible for him to become bankrupt with the organization. If the relationship strengthens, the leadership receives change until it is possible for him to become rich with the organization. So I hope that makes sense. That's a figurative, change in your pocket where when you build up trust and you build up a relationship with people in your organization, you're given bargaining chips. When you deplete and negate those relationships and you make them weaker, you're giving up change. And then in the end, when you want to implement change, you're bankrupt. You got nothing in the pocket. And so I'm telling you, your sheriff, your chief is going to be far more willing to listen to you when you're not a nathering nabob of negativism, when you come in and you present good ideas, well thought out ideas, and there's a relationship there. So if you want to implement change, I'm telling you, don't start with this is why we need to implement change and this is what I want to do. Start out by building relationships. That is going to be the foundation to getting the change done that you want. Okay, the next one. You're going to solicit the support of influencers before change is made public. Okay? Again, if you're one to just ram change down the throat and we're going to do it this way because I said it's this way or it's always been done that way, you're going to meet obstacles at every corner, all right? You need to solicit support from people. Go around and simply give them a chance to provide some feedback and speak into what you're doing. All right, I like this quote. Every new idea goes through 3 phases. It will not work, it will cost too much, and I thought it was a good idea all along. I guarantee you, you go into a room of 10 people, you throw out an idea, it will go right through that. Won't work, will cost too much, and then you may get to a point where they're claiming the idea. All right, so you just got to be aware that's how that's going to go through that. And the very last one I've got here, show people how the change is going to benefit them. You got to be able to lay that stuff out. The more persuasive you are in your ability to show them how this is a benefit to them, the more likely you're going to get them on board with what you want to do. So yeah, I understand getting that evidence management system is important, but if all you do is walk in and your answer is, what I've got sucks, I want to get something better, you're not getting anything. You got to be able to go through all these different steps. You got to get people on board with them, show them why it's important, how it's going to benefit them. And hopefully all of that is being done after you've built up trust and you've got relationships with these people. Then you're going to be much more effective moving forward. And so to sort of wrap this up, that's what I learned about 5 years ago when I went through this book, is that I was pretty much in violation, not just of change, but like almost all 10 chapters that were in this book, to some degree or another, I was not doing it the way that it needed to be done. And when I started making wholesale changes with the way we operated, all of a sudden it created an environment where now all of a sudden, like, we have change all the time. I'm telling you, if you may be a part of an organization where you would say, we don't change anything. Tracker Products, we are an organization that is involved in significant change frequently. It is a part of what we do and who we are. And I got 24 people that are all wrapped around this. And I'd like to believe that we go through many of these things that I have offered you here today. And so I hope, and I'm willing to take some questions on this. I've reached the end of my presentation, but what I'd really like to hear, Max, if anybody's got questions, throw them out. Max, I see we've got some stuff in here. What do you got?
So not as much a question as a comment. So Jake had a quote that was relevant to the presentation. So Jake Wilburn says his favorite quote, and the one in his email signature, is by Thomas Paine, the author of Common Sense from the Revolutionary War period. And the quote is, "A long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right, and at first raises a formidable outcry in defense of custom." In other words, there will always be resistance to slaying sacred cows because everyone just gets used to the stink of cow pies. That's a good one.
I don't know when that came in, but that sort of is the idea, that there are people out there that'll just sit in their own stink versus changing and going to something more pleasant because maybe it's their own. Maybe they created it and they just feel comfortable with that. And I'm with you on that. And so, excellent. And I see a couple of comments in here where people are just saying amen and yes, agreed. So listen, I hope this was something valuable for everybody. I'm not going to keep you guys for an hour today. I just wanted to throw this out. This is something that I believe in personally, and I hope this is something you guys can make use of and go about making change in your world. So I don't see anything else coming in. So guys, everybody, thank you for your time today, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.